Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Looks like we're live again. My name is Dustin Brett. I'm a software developer up in Canada. And today is stream number 10 on this journey here to build an OS in the browser or a desktop environment or Windows clone, whatever you want to call it. I wouldn't call it a Windows clone, actually. I'm doing the Windows theme right now with a little bit of my work, but a lot of what I've been doing for the past 9 streams really doesn't have much to do with Windows and has more to do with just a faux desktop environment slash OS. I don't know what you would call it exactly. This is a live stream, as you can tell. So feel free to throw some comments in the message, the YouTube messages, and you can kind of go along with me. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer and mention anything you guys post in there. And if you're seeing this after the stream, then feel free to leave a comment. And on that note, feel free to leave a like and a subscribe as well. It's much appreciated and keeps me fired up for these streams, as I really like doing them. They're pretty fun. I pretty much spend the whole week before the stream kind of planning it out and thinking what I'm going to do. So it's fun, you know. It's a big part of my days, kind of thinking about working on the project and just kind of tweaking it and stuff. And I've actually done this once before this project. I think I mentioned this almost every stream. This is a redo of what I've kind of already accomplished over a 4-month span that I had done it. Back in August 2020, I guess I started it. And it went pretty good, but there's a lot of things I want to change. So that's why I'm kind of redoing it here. And also I wanted to do it and show everybody kind of how to do it and how to program at the same time, I guess, how to do this kind of programming. I mean, there's tons of different aspects to programming that we may or may not get into, but this little project of ours kind of gives us a lot of opportunities to get into different programming stuff because, I mean, there's the whole OS level thing and how far you want to go down that rabbit hole and how closely you want to match an operating system. Currently, I'm pretty like a thin layer, I would say, you know. It's not like I'm kind of emulating moving memory around and all the like base level stuff. I'm very focused on kind of how it looks visually and kind of simulating the effects, you know. But that being said, like I say, you could go pretty deep in that direction if you wanted to go and learn advanced programming techniques that way, which is why it's a cool project, because you can go that way, or you can go the other way and, like I say, just make UI level stuff. Or at some point we're going to get into like a backend. Like I don't have a backend even in the V1, but there's things I could do with a backend that I really want to do. Like I'd like to make an app, like an IRC app. And there's like an open source one out there. I can't remember what it's called right now. What is it called? Yeah, if you search for like open source IRC servers / client in the browser kind of thing, there's one out there that looks pretty interesting. And I'd like to do that and then skin it like mIRC, if you guys know that, back in the Windows days, just to get it more closely to how my computer used to look back in the day. And I haven't been on IRC in a long time, to be honest, but I still think it's a cool feature and it's like an easy way to add chat to my app, essentially. I mean, yeah, like I'd set up a channel on IRC and I'd be in there and people could just kind of come in and chat. And it's a little more hardcore than a Discord channel or something. The fact that I'd still be using IRC and it looks like mIRC, oh man, it'd be insane. I really want to do it actually. So, and there's a few other little back-end things we could do. So we'll need to set up a server at some point. Same with hosting too. I'd like to do my own hosting at some point. Right now it's GitHub pages for version 1 and I don't have this one hosted anywhere right now, but we'll get into that. You know, we'll get there. I figure like if it's 1 stream a week, 52 weeks in a year, I mean, 52 streams is a lot. This is episode 10. This is stream 10. So another 40 or so. I'll probably miss 1 or 2, I feel like, in the whole 52 weeks, but we'll see. I'm doing pretty good so far. Done it since the start of January 2021, and now we're in March, and I've had one every week. So that presumably means that this is week 10 of the year. Thanks for everyone who's tuned in, by the way, either live or after the fact. Check it out. It's much appreciated. And I'm happy that you guys are interested in this kind of stuff. And I've had nothing but positive feedback on it. So that alone kind of keeps me going and it's appreciated. So without further ado, which I like to say a couple times per episode, let's switch to the next piece, which is the episode recap. Also, by the way, last episode, it didn't freeze on me, but it's been my OBS, my streaming software, has kind of been on and off for freezing. So hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, I'll just kind of, if you're watching live, I'll disappear, and then maybe a minute or two later, I'll be back. And if you're watching after the fact, there might just be some kind of skip in which all of a sudden I'm talking like, what happened with OBS? So we'll see. I'm hoping for the day where I don't have to warn people about that. So hopefully this is it, but I like to throw it in there. Anyways, so last episode, recap. Yeah, I mean, last episode, the stream didn't freeze, so we talked about that. What else here? Let's just scroll down to the bottom because that's kind of the first commit of the episode. Where was it here? Yeah, this was it here, 7 days ago, as you guys can see right there. So what did I do? I added the DeepSource config. Yeah, this is a cool thing, and we'll get into this very shortly, right after this recap. This tool called DeepSource, I actually added it. It's like a tool for scanning the source code. I added it, and then I never actually showed you guys the results of what the scan were. So the code's evolved slightly since then, and now you guys get to see the results of how the code is now, because like I said, we'll jump into that pretty soon. I also finally got NPM Update working. I had some wonkiness with it the episode prior. I've actually been having some wonkiness with it since as well. So unfortunately, I used to be able to do NPM Update and it would update the package file for me without any issue. But now I've been having issues lately, so I'm not sure what happened. Because I feel like maybe the lock file was out of sync, but then I fixed that last episode using the NCU tool. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it might just because I've been nuking my node modules folder too much. Who knows? Anyways. Then I did a lot of refactoring and stuff. ESLint updates. Don't need this. Don't need that. Rename this to this. I'm looking for something of substance here. What did I put in my little summaries here? Yeah, refactors and tweaks. I did some taskbar entry styling, as you can see here from this. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor. There you go. Now you can. I'm not sure if you could earlier. But yeah, I styled the taskbar entries, and also I added the open and close functionality, which is kind of cool. So now we're going to probably leverage that in this episode, in which we just got work on the file manager. So we're going to use the file manager to essentially create the desktop icons. We're going to use it when we have a file explorer view, app, window, whatever you want to call it, where you can kind of navigate the file system. That's going to be the exact same file manager component. The start menu, the items it shows, that's going to be the file manager. So it's just basically going to be a list that can be styled different ways. And the list is going to be relative to the files that we've already kind of set up through a tool called BrowserFS, which we, I don't know if we did that last episode or if we did that this, I think we did that a couple episodes ago. I'm not sure, but we've set up a file system now. So we have a file system. You'd have to go back and see how we did that. And then that's about it. Yeah. And then I slip my stream notes in as I usually do. And I think this error here is exactly what I'm talking about, and maybe is a perfect jump. Yeah, here we go. Some checks were not successful. So you can see here that I'm not sure if this will happen every time, but it's kind of cool is that the DeepSource thing seems to be connected to GitHub through me adding that file, I guess, that maybe they have some kind of bot or tool to make that connection. And you can see that it talks about the failed tests now. So we can kind of look in those, and we can see that all that's failed is 2 style tests. So that's pretty good, that the code already was passing most things. We can click here to go to a detailed report, presumably. Yeah, here we go. Cool. And missing new line before. This is a stylistic thing. I think I've told it to ignore this, but the other one was more valid, I believe. Yeah, this implicit callback. Let's just go to the overview here and see what it's got listed. So it's got the 2 style ones. I think it's different than what it was before. Yeah, here we go. It's that implicit callback one, but it's 2 of them. Yeah, here and here. And this actually takes us basically right into the code, I think. And let's just do our first refactor in this regard. I'm going to move this in my notes up to right. Before we even do the NPM updates, let's just kind of deal with this DeepSource stuff, right? And if you guys have any troubles hearing me or video issues, or you're having trouble reading the text or anything like that, please throw something in the chat. I mean, if you're having trouble hearing me, you might not know that I'm saying this. So that's the one caveat. But anyways, let's tweak this, because I was actually thinking about this. And I mean, this is the same code in 2 files. This piece here, the switching the processes to like an entries map where it's got like a key and then the process. And then I'm running it through like a mapping function is what I'm kind of thinking of this as. And like I'm doing the same thing here. So what I'm thinking actually and this might be a tweak that I'll do for more of the consumers or whatever, this process consumer, is in regards to the contexts, is having them return functions that can kind of be useful in this way. So instead of just returning the processes as a straight object, which is kind of what it is, I'm just going to return like a mapProcesses function. So you can just call that in the consumer and go right into mapping the processes and not have to worry about, oh, it's an object, but I want it as an array so I can map over it, blah, 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 you know? So without further ado, let's do it again. Let's jump into the code and you know, do this. So here's some of my notes. Here's my little spiel that I do at the start to remember what to say. That's gone. Yeah, I wanted to do the mapProcesses like I just told you guys. So let's think about how we're going to do that. Where would it be? So it told us in that DeepSource thing. So I'm just going to look at where it said is it called DeepSource? Yeah, DeepSource. So it's in components, system, taskbar entries. There it is. And the other place that it is in the process consumer, which is process loader, sorry, which is right here. So why is it already complaining here? Property processes does not exist. I disagree. What is it talking about? It's already being silly for us, you know? That's frustrating. Let's take a peek and see it, because VS Code sometimes is just like, when I switch branches, it seems to not really remember the context or something. Yeah, see, this is, so processes is being exported. So is this wrong here? No, even there it's correct. Did all of a sudden, oh yeah, look at that. So I just opened that to look at it, and then it's like, oh, never mind. Nice. Well, that's a good little demo for you guys of VS Code wonkiness. So what's this complaint? That's probably not a complaint, you know? What if we close VS Code and open it? It's going to do a little OBS wonkiness, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to close VS Code because it's behaving badly. I'm going to reopen it. And we're going to see, no, OBS didn't just pick up where it was. Let me just say, hey, this is it. So there we go. So it's back. So you see that error is gone. You know, there was another error. So I'm going to hope in general that kind of refreshed it, you know, give it a little, That might be something to do when you switch branches and you rerun NPM or something like that. Just close VS Code and open it sometimes, because you're going to get these weird errors, you know, that I was getting. So I had the process loader open, and I wanted to have the taskbar entries open because I wanted to redo these. Instead of having it do this piece here, I'm going to turn that into a callback function within the processes context state hook here, which is used for the context. I've moved all these out into hooks and into their own folders. I'll just do it right here. So like I said, it's going to be called mapProcesses, and I'm going to use the use callback because we're just going to pass the callback into the mapping function. And I'll just call it callback here. Did I have a... I'll do this in a second, you know, one thing at a time when you can't remember the types. So it was going to be like that, and then I was going to say callback gets passed in there. And as far as dependencies, we care about the processes. I'm going to press save to that just to clean it up and prettier. So if I press save, it makes it a little more readable so you guys can see it on the screen. I'll also get this thing out of the way. I think is that a reasonable size for you guys to see? I could zoom in further, but I think hopefully that's visible. So we got the basics here. As far as the callback, I want it to be like how map is expecting here. So what is map expecting? String process, right, exactly. Let me just double check what I did. So something I kind of do in between episodes is I kind of pre-do it so that I remember what I'd like to do. And that can kind of help me remember in the video. It's like, what did I call this? Oh, so I never actually defined callback here. What I did, and which actually makes more sense, is I defined the type here. And what did I call it? What makes sense to call it here? mapProcesses. So why don't we call it a processes map? Yeah, I think so. I'm not 100% sure I like that, but it's not terrible. So let's just define it here, and then we're going to probably move it in with these other two types, I think. So what did we say it was? We said it was the callback. I'm just going to see, what did I call it here? Something simple. I'm just going to paste it in because and then we can just kind of go over what I wrote here. Yeah, so the callback, oh, I'm sorry, this isn't an object. This is the function itself. And its argument is the callback. And the callback that we're expecting is as from a map function, like it says here, it's some kind of key and element, and it's able to infer here, I guess. How was it able to infer process? That's interesting to me. Oh, okay, because it knows what processes is? Yeah. So it's actually able to infer the type here. So I probably don't need to be explicit, but I'm actually trying to be more explicit with my types in general. So cool that it inferred it, and we'll just take that. We'll take that string process piece. We're using it here basically. Yeah, here's the type, and here's what we've decided to name it. I don't think you can not name it. Let me try. No, it hates that. So this is how I think you have to do the type. Unless, can you do like this? Maybe, that'd be nice. I'd be happy with that. That may have worked. Let me see here. No, I don't think that did work. Let's do it the old way, right? The way that I actually had it a second ago. So I need process again here. Get that in there. Okay, so that way it stopped complaining. So yeah, that's what I expected. So that's what you're getting into the mapping function. You're getting a little array with ID in the process, and the ID is a string, and the process is a type process. And what it's returning is this JSX element, and it turns it into an array of JSX elements, which it's able to also figure out. Nice. And yeah, it's not complaining about that, so that's clean enough. Oh wait, we have to specify that as well. No inferring. So we have to say what it returns, which, as I just said, is an array. There we go. And now it wants to reorganize this. Okay, it wants to reorganize more. Just keep reorganizing. There we go. Oh yeah, that's cleaner. Nice. So now we have our mapProcesses function. And like I said, it's very simple. It just takes in a callback that's expected to be the kind of callback that comes from a mapping function. And in this case, because processes is what the array is made out of, the mapping function is going to be for a string and a process. So that's simple enough. And now that we have mapProcesses, I'm going to just export that. I'm not going to export the processes because I'm not using it anywhere else. And maybe we don't even need it, you know? I mean, we're not using open close yet either, but we're going to, like I said, use those today, I think, hopefully. So so we took mapProcesses there, and now we use it here, and we just replace this piece. And we use it here, and we just replace this piece. There we go. And if we save all to that, so it did a very nice job here, but it's complaining about something. So what's up here? I haven't done this piece yet. So now I have to say the process context state. I have to be explicit about what that's returning. So if we go to its definition, it was expecting to return processes before. Now it's like, no, now you're returning, what are you returning now? You're returning that map function. That map type, sorry, this one here. We're actually going to move this now anyways. This is the perfect place for this. This should be here within the types. It should be exported, and that's what's going to be used here. There we go. That looks better, and now I'll have to import it here because I just cut it out. So hopefully we can auto do that. Yeah, nice. And now we don't need process here, actually. There we go. So that's cleaner, and now there's no more complaints. Yeah, that's good. That's as far as I want to refactor this for this exact step. So yeah, now let's take a look at what we've changed here. So this is to kind of fix that DeepSource complaint where it was saying things were implicit. Now it's explicit because we've completely defined what mapProcesses does, what it expects to receive, what it returns. So it's very clear here that we're using this way. And we've also cleaned this up. Now it's just like mapProcesses, and then throw in a function that is like a mapping function with the expectation that it's the ID or the key and the value. And we know the value is the process, and we know the key is a string, which is representative of the ID in this case. So that's nice. And it also made it fit on one line, which is cool. And now we don't have to put this logic in two places, even though it's a minor amount of logic. Again, same thing here, did that. And then we just put it in here, and we did the use callback function, and we say only when processes changes do we want to remake this this function to update it, basically. So yeah, that's good. And then we updated the type here. I think that's good for that. So what did I write in my note here as to call this step? Refactor to use mapProcesses. I like it. So refactor to use mapProcesses is still what we ended up doing in the end. Yeah, let's commit that, right? I think so. I'm waiting for something to go on fire there, but no, I think that's a good one. And I could do build and test after every time, but I'm just gonna kind of figure it out, and if I break something, I'll fix it, you know? That's my mentality. So we checked DeepSource, we refactored this. So yeah, because we did the DeepSource and then we decided to resolve that issue, we didn't do NPM updates first, but typically we do them first. So let's see here, I'm gonna attempt to do NPM outdated, I'm gonna hear what we got. And when I do NPM update, I don't know if it's gonna update the package file, which is unfortunate, because I think that's busted. So let's just see what our list is here of things. TypeScript, ESLint. So yeah, we're gonna get to this. Actually, let's just get to this right now. So if you guys remember last episode, TypeScript jumped to 4.2 something or other. And I was saying, oh, we can't go to that because ESLint's TypeScript parsing plugin is not yet supporting 4.2. But now, as you see, they have supported 4.2. Whatever. I don't think there is a 4.3, so they've essentially just bumped support. It probably would have worked before, but their little version checking thing, you know, said no. So we want that update for sure, and we want this. I think that's essentially associated with it. All these ESLint updates are cool. I'm hoping if we get these, ESLint will run, and we'll do a test. We'll update these, and we'll update TypeScript, and then we'll see if ESLint runs. Husky, sure. Oh, okay, there's been a Next.js update. It's a patch. I'm not even going to look at what the changes are, but I actually didn't know there was an update, so that's cool. And it's updated this. Interesting. Oh, that's a major update from 20 to 21. This would be a good time to check for breaking changes, but I'm just going to also run styleLint as a test when I do ESLint. So let's update a bunch of this stuff. First, let's just do npm update and see if it updates the package file at all, because I think that's busted, unfortunately. Also, my day today is sponsored by Rockstar. Not really, but just sponsored by them, chemically speaking, you know? So we're doing the slow npm update. It used to be a lot faster. I feel like that's associated with it being kind of busticated. So let's see what we got. One update wrong. Should have been two updates. So it updated the lock file and it did not update the package.json file again. So frustrating. So we're just going to have to rely on NCU until I figure this out. If you don't know, check last episode. This is just another package that kind of does the updating for you when NPM's broken, which mine seems to slightly be. So there we go. So I just did a huge update there and got a lot of stuff. Now I'm going to have to roll back one of them at least, and that is the 3.js. Because that still needs to be this version to work with my Vanta.js wallpaper that no one's gonna fix anytime soon, I think. Sorry to the author. He did say kudos on finding it within my little message, my GitHub issue, but I don't know, maybe he is making an update. I don't want to speak prematurely to that. So where's 3.js? It's right here. Here we go. So nope, stay at that version is what I want to say to it. And what else? I'm happy with the next update. I'm happy with these ones. Husky, yeah. And now I'm happy with the TypeScript update. And I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to say to TypeScript now, hey, you can update up to your, this level as well. So before I had locked it and it was like, whoa, stay at 4.1 because we have to, but not anymore. So now that we've updated these things, we're going to run npm install again. And it's going to sync things up again, but it's not going to work in some ways probably. So if we do npm outdated, maybe npm I worked, but npm update's still busted. Okay, cool. So 3.js is still behind. I'm going to run npm update one more time, maybe it'll do something to the lock file. I don't know. I want them to be in sync. And then just like when I run npm update, both should change. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Like I could show you the documentation, but I'll wait for someone to comment and say I'm wrong, and then I'll have to look it up, and maybe I am wrong, but I'll wait until that day. Okay, so we've done the update. Like we said, we did it next. We did, what else did we do? The ESLint stuff, jest. Oh yeah, so let's run npm run ESLint, and let's just see if it doesn't like give us some kind of error at least. Okay, cool. Code still seems to be testing okay. npm run styleLint, because remember we did a big update there to their extended rules. So, okay, cool. So they still seem to work. So let's say npm updates, and that commit is done. Until the next one for that. close this. Oh man, did I close my console? Is this not even working anymore? Let me refresh the app. Yeah, I did. Okay, let's npm run dev. Let's keep this running here so that our app doesn't die on us, because then we don't want to lose the pretty wallpaper and stuff. So let me press reload again. It's back. So this is what we have so far, by the way. We're going to be doing some refactoring and tweaking. I mean, we're getting into the refactoring right now, I guess, in that we did that map processes. But today, the hope is that we're going to have something that does some more stuff, which will be cool. Having a desktop icon will be nice. Like, if you were to just open the page with where I'm hoping to leave it, you'd be like, oh, maybe this is like Windows, because we pretty much have the three elements now. We got a clock, we got a start button, and we got a desktop icon. So it's possible, you know. You could trick somebody, but we don't have a lot of stuff. We don't have the start menu. We don't have et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Use render process props. Yes. So I want to not do prop spreading when possible. I'm not going to disable the ESLint rule that says I do want to do that, because there's a few scenarios where I don't mind it for Next.js purposes. Like here within the app, this ... page props. I don't know what those are necessarily going to be, and I feel like this is a perfectly reasonable syntax in this scenario when like you're almost doing like a boilerplate thing and you're passing something along. It's like, hey, I'm just dumping the props in, dude. And here's the other one within the with styled whatever, you know. There's a few places where it makes sense, but here I don't think it does, because I mean, yeah, it's render process, but I don't need every single piece of a process for what I want to do here, I don't think. At least not currently. Maybe it does make sense to pass the whole process to the component called render process, but I feel like we're trying to render it, so we need the component and we need to know if it needs a window. Other than that, do we need its icon? Not really for what this thing does, you know? This isn't about the icon, that's a different component. So that's my thinking on that. And I'm basically going to do exactly what I just said. So I think it needs the component, and I think it needs to know about the has window aspect. And we're just going to pass those in directly. And if we open up the render process function too, I think there's one other thing. So yeah, the way I was doing has window, actually, I could make this more Boolean-esque, because I don't even know if it is it. Yeah, process is supposed to be a Boolean here, or undefined. Okay. Is that the way I've got it though? Does it ever need to be undefined? Maybe not. Not within the context of this component, because I'm going to fix that basically, is what I'm getting at here. So let's just do what I'm saying, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here it can stay possibly undefined, because we just got it straight from the process consumer. We got the process list, and within the processes themselves, there might not be a has window. But what we're passing to render process, let's be explicit. And the way to do a cool way to, let's save this first, just to clean it up a bit. So a cool way to do that is just this little thing called ! And it's just kind of a trick in JavaScript where if this were undefined, the way it works is if something's undefined and you say like, check if it's not undefined, or you try to convert it to not undefined, this little piece here basically turns into false. And then when you do not false, you get true. So it's kind of a way to convert it, basically. So in that case, if it is an object and you do this, I believe you get true. Now I've confused myself, actually. I probably explained it wrong, but the gist of it is that this converts it into a Boolean. So if it's undefined, it's false. And if it's an object, it's true. So I don't think it's doing like a double switch or something, but I'm not 100% true. Let's assume that if it's let's test it, actually, because I feel like I just made that up now. So what I do when I want to test JavaScript is I just open up DevTools in Chrome. So what I want to do is say not and an object is false. And not and undefined. Oh, okay. Not and undefined is true. Okay, so the object itself is considered true. So when you're not, you're like saying it's false. And then when you say it again, that's the flip. And if it's undefined, it kind of does do a flip in the other direction. So you get false, which is what you want. Another way to do this, and probably a cleaner way, I might actually change it to this, to be honest, because it's the fact that I have to explain this. I don't think I'll have to explain this other method that I'll show you. Let me show you the other way. Look at that, Boolean, and then undefined, let's say. There we go. So Boolean, and then you just wrap the thing. So if I say object, true. So maybe I'm going to do it that way because I want the code to be accessible. And this is like, oh, I did it a tricky way, but not everybody knows this. So let's just do this and say, hey, I'm expecting a Boolean. So I press save. There we go. That's clean. I kind of like, oh, sorry guys. I didn't switch back to the code. So basically all I did is I just, let me just reverse and show you what I did. So yeah, I went from the double exclamation marks to the Boolean, and that doesn't look so bad. It's kind of an explicit way to convert a Boolean, even though if it could be undefined, because in this case, it could be undefined if we hover over it. So now it's not undefined. And now if we go to render process and we make a render process props type, like so. Let me get this out of the way. And it has these two things. And we know now we can say that has window is a Boolean, and we don't have to say it could be undefined because we've made sure that it'll always be some kind of Boolean by doing that type conversion. And the component is whatever the component was over here. What was the component? Component type? No, that's not quite how I defined it, honestly. I'm pretty sure. Let me go types, process, like this, react.component type. I prefer that one. There we go. So that's a little bit better, I think. Because now it's just more explicit. Now it's like render process. Now you know exactly what it needs, Before it's like, oh, just take the whole process, Because that has an icon, it's got the title. I don't need any of that for what I'm doing here. Because the component can have another context where it can look about that stuff, where, it can know, well, what's the icon? What's the whatever, that kind of thing. So do we not need this anymore? Why is that? Oh, yes, we don't need that no more. Okay, cool. So I think that's the gist of what I wanted to do there. Let me just double check. Yeah, so I've been explicit here. No more prop spreading for this piece here. And then I just did that. I created a new type. So that's probably a cleaner way to do it. That's kind of what the ESLint rule I think is getting at. Let me just show you which ESLint rule I'm talking about here. This one here, JSX props no spread in. I've turned that off because of, like I said, some of the Next.js stuff, the boilerplate. I guess I could just add a couple ignores and then maybe I should do that. Let me just try that instead, because there is a place for ESLint ignore in these kind of boilerplate scenarios. So let me just do that here. I'd like to do just ignore the next line, but I don't remember how to do that in ESLint. So when I don't know how to do stuff, I Google it. ESLint ignore next line. Ignore with 2 E's. This is a rookie move people do with Google. Maybe it's not rookie, but when you make a spelling mistake and you go back and fix it, I don't even worry about that. It's like Google just figures it out nowadays. I mean, it's even like it already says showing results for what I expected you to type, So that's a little pro tip. Don't worry about fixing your spelling with Google. Just throw it out there and just press enter as fast as possible and then fix it along the way. Here we go, disable next line. And this is another pro tip. You don't have to click the links 82% of the time. A lot of time the information's right here or in like these little tips that there is not one there, but just throwing out Google tips here and there. So what was it here? Let's just say it's this. So I took that little piece. I'm going to assume that I understand what it is. I'm going to say it's like that. No. I'm going to say it's like, this off. Maybe it's that. Let's try. I don't think I can do it here. I don't know how to do a comment in this exact context. What if I highlight this and just do Control KC? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that exactly. Did that work? I don't know if that worked actually. Let me cut this out of here because I haven't actually disabled the rule yet. So right now it's still okay. It's not complaining. Let's get rid of that rule and let's just follow it. So I agree about prop spreading. No more ignoring that. So it's going to complain. Now, was this comment valid? Nope, that didn't do a darn thing. ESLint disable next line. Did I type that correctly? Maybe it doesn't understand comments in that way. Let's see. It's doing like a double slash comment. Oh, I see. Yeah. I probably should have clicked the page, to be honest, in this case, because I didn't really read how to do it. So it's more just like this. There we go, and that did it. So yeah, let's be explicit and just say we want to ignore these ones because this like I said, is boilerplate for the pages. And the other one is kind of a boilerplate-ish thing for the style sheet, which is in here. This one here. So same story, different comment though slightly. I'm gonna do it. I don't know if I like doing those comments or I like doing this one for ESLint, where it's like a one-line, two-liner. Why is this complaining now? Oh, now it's like, was this always complaining, this implicit any type thing? Huh, that's weird. Was that, I wonder if that's because of this rule that it was like that before? Or did I just not notice that this is complaining as well? It's true. I don't know what the props are for this. What's app? Any, yeah, again. Yeah, I don't really know what this is supposed to be. Render page, any. Oh, is it not understanding context? I think something else is broken because context should actually be, look at document context right there. So what is it talking about? Here it's like any. No, sir. Let's just do this ignore. Like I said, I wanted to do it like this. I'm going to save that. I'm just going to walk away from this file because I think it's VS Code just being wrong again. Yeah, it's saying implicit any, but it's not implicit if you step back here, because it's the problem is we don't know what context is. It's saying context is an any, but if you go here, you can see I've defined it as a document context, but this isn't being found. Wonder why. Is that Next.js being wonky now? Sometimes if you, again with VS Code, if you just start opening files, it'll start working. Well, not in this case. That's too bad. It can be frustrating sometimes with VS Code lately. I've had a lot of trouble with it, with this types. I don't know if it's just me. I think I'm going to go to the Insider edition probably. I might have better luck with that. Did I fix it at all? Is it still doing that? Yeah, it's still complaining. So we're going to ignore that. Let me do npm run build too, because sometimes build will catch. If there's a legit type thing, build will catch. Oh, what was that? It like popped up for a second, some kind of error. Oh, there was an error in the end here. Oh, okay. This is totally unrelated. This is to the other thing that I changed, and then I didn't change enough stuff. So if you remember when I changed the... See, this is where I should be running more tests. I think I even said, oh, I should run npm build, but I'll fix it along the way. So I guess this is me fixing it along the way. So what did I break? The initial context here. Remember, now we're not passing processes. We're just passing mapProcesses. And what should we get here? A function that returns undefined? Is that correct? Who knows, right? What did I put here for this? Oh, right, it returns an array because it returns a JSX elements array. So yeah, that's correct. So that should have been in the previous commit. Let's just do that as a separate commit here. Where was it here? Additional commit for mapProcesses. Or yeah, no reason to be more specific than that. So what have I changed so far? This was in regards to that rule, the ESLint rule. Oh no, this is just me going off on a tangent. Let's do these as two separate things. So I want to not have the, actually let's make sure I fix the build first, but then the commit that I want to do is essentially these three pieces here. And I'm saying no more ignoring the prop spreading rule, other than the two ignore rules that I just added. So I added an ignore rule here, and I added their ignore rule there, because I think those are valid. But in general, I'm going to no longer ignore that thing. So save that. And what was this piece I was doing here? Is this two things? Oh man, did I not commit when I did this? I'm confusing myself here now. Let me just double check. Refactor to use that. Yeah, exactly. Did NPM updates. Use render process props instead of spreading. Okay. Ah, yes. Right, I had to define it here. I keep forgetting how explicit I have to be with these definitions. So right, I just updated this here to say has window is no longer optional, where when in a process, I believe it is optional. But render process should know it. I need a Boolean. I need to make a decision here. So that's nice. So let's just write it exactly as we did here. use render process props instead of spreading, right? Because we just removed the prop spreading rule. So this is perfect timing. Commit that one and move on to the next. Clean up some of this stuff in our way so we can see a bit more code. Maybe I should zoom in a bit more, you know? I feel like the code could be a little bit bigger. I'm gonna zoom in one level. I think that's better. I think that's how I had it before. It was probably legible earlier, but the bigger the better, you know? So we've done all of this stuff already. And now we can get, yes, this is another cool thing I wanted to do involving the context factory that I made. You know how you can do use context and then pass in the context and get back the context that way? I currently didn't have that with my factory, because if you look at my context factory, wherever the heck I put it, here, nice, it all fits in the screen. So I was only exporting the consumer and a provider, which you basically use in JSX. But there's opportunities to not use JSX sometimes. And I like the idea of my factory just kind of exporting all the different ways to use context, kind of. So let's do that. So there's also going to be one called useContext. It's going to export. It's going to be its own little custom one. It's going to be a function that doesn't need to take anything, and it returns the context type. Same as this one here. And we're going to add useContext, the React version. But we're going to make our own, just like how we make our own consumer and our own, well, we actually make our own provider, but we do pass the consumer directly. So our provider is a functional component and our useContext is like this special thing. It's not like the React one. Although the React one, I think, is similar anyways. And we're going to, like I say, export it here. And it's just going to be a function that executes the useContext React function and takes in the context. Now we need the context, which currently here I'm destructing. So we're not going to do that anymore. Instead, we're just going to have it cp context like that. And then we'll just reference context here. Context.provider, context.provider. And in consumer, we'll export it like that. Context.consumer. There we go. And if we press save, prettier, we'll clean that up. So it's a little longer. It doesn't fit on one screen anymore. One zoomed in screen. But now we also have this use context that we can use for many of our consumers. For many of our contexts, sorry. So we made our context factory even cooler, I think. And now let's use it, essentially. So if we go to our three contexts, we just have to kind of, I'm going to open all three of them at once here. And we just have to add all that stuff. So in each case, I take what it's called and then I give it its own name. So we're going to do that here. We're going to go use context as use file system in this case, because this is the file system. And we need to use context here. We'll just extract it from there, like so. Same here. In all cases, we need to extract it from the context factory during the destruction. And we also need to export it here as use processes, plural, I think makes sense there. And in this case, I don't think it does make sense. As use session, because it's not multiple sessions, but it is multiple processes. Processi. There we go. So now our three contexts are exporting this use session, use processes, and use file system. Also the provider and the consumer that can be used in JSX. So that's I think handy. So let's just save that as is. I think that's all we needed there. Let's do another NPM run build because I feel like I've probably already broke it again. And another chance to drink some Rockstar. This is a good one. Watermelon. I don't know if you guys know. It doesn't look like watermelon from the can. I guess the inside of a watermelon is kind of red like that. If you notice, my lights are red today. It's not really related to the Rockstar, but... Or maybe it was. So let's commit that. Let's just, yeah, we know what we changed. Get this out of my way. We added use context, and we did all the code required to do that. And some of these things I'm doing, like I'm kind of adding functionality and it's like, why is he doing that? I mean, I'm explaining why, but we're also going to use this kind of at the end with the file system, a lot of this stuff. So makes sense. Export simple hook objects, one line when possible. Okay, so for this, I basically just wanted to do a little tweak refactor. If we go to my hooks here, you see there's kind of a pattern where I return just a basic function that has what I've turned into the variables that also have the same name. Same with, oh, this is where it's kind of not good. Let me show you some others where it is good. Same here, again, just a bunch of variables. Like I said, I think they can be on one line. So let's one line these for now until it doesn't fit. I like to just simplify this as much as possible. So that's why I wanted it to be consistent. Here I don't return anything, and here I don't return anything. So the one I wanted to make consistent here was time. I want to just export these out to the variables that they are, and then I'll just kind of dump them all at the end. I don't think it's going to mess with line length too much, so let's just do it here. Const, throw the consts in there, and turn these into equals. And I think that's it. That part's simple enough. And then I have to change the line endings. And I need this at the bottom because I need formats. There we go. And now it's just complaining because they're not being used, but that's simple enough. Because I don't want to look at the return and have to think, oh, there's some logic going on there, you know, just the return stuff. Don't worry about it defining or creating stuff there. There we go. So it's like, get your variables in order and then just dump them out. These are the three I need still. So that's the only two refactors I wanted to do, just kind of that. And I'm going to use the wording that I used here because it's simple enough. I've already thought of it. Export simple hook objects, one line when possible. Nice. Now this is something I noticed I was doing that's kind of silly, is I'm doing like there's a hook called useTheme to get the theme context, but you can also do useContext and then theme context. But the thing with that is you import two things. You need the useContext from React, and then you need the theme context. When you can just do the useTheme hook, which is kind of like what I just did with my useFile system, useProcesses. I made it into this one little thing, and then you don't have to get useContext as well. Which I'm not even exporting the context in my context factory, but I really don't need to because I'm already kind of exporting everything you want to do with it, you know, a provider, a consumer, and its use function. So let's just not use theme context is what I'm getting at here, and instead use useTheme. So if we go here where I'm using it, basically we can just export useTheme instead, and then just use that here, and we don't even need useContext. There we go, simple. And then we just get rid of useContext here, and it still works exactly the same, and it's a little cleaner. useTheme, that makes sense. Don't even need to know it's a context, honestly, but it is. So let's commit that nice little tweak. And let's push these 8 commits that we've already done, just kind of throw them on the server, see if it finds anything. DeepSource is going to take a peek at it. Maybe we'll check on that. I could have done this one more before I pushed, but it doesn't matter. So I also wanted to make a constant file, constants, which again we'll use in the, I'm foreshadowing that we're going to need some another constant, but let's just make it because I like the idea of having that file anyways. So we'll call it constants.ts, even though I don't know if we'll need types right away. And the one that we can export now is in the clock, I think. Where did I put that? Yeah, which already sounds silly, like, oh, you have some kind of constant in the clock file. Where is it though? Oh, it's in the hook. It's in the hook that the clock uses for synced clock, I believe. Yeah, milliseconds in second. The synced clock doesn't need to explicitly be defining that. That should be defined somewhere else. Somewhere up above, you know? Somewhere in the sky. So it's complaining here because I've kind of got this rule to prefer the default export. But I don't want to do that because I'm going to be needing to export other stuff very soon. So I'm going to copy this rule and I'm going to ignore that as well. How many ESLint ignore rules do I have actually? Do I have many? No, I have very few actually. Disable next line, disable next line. Yeah, so I'm going to stick to the trick of using this disable next line because that's the cleanest. That's like very, hey, if the rule gets broken somewhere else down the line, I do want you to say something. Whereas if you just do an ESLint rule off on a file, that's the end of it, kind of, you know, end of story. So cool. So yeah, let's just do that because I don't have many ESLint ignores, but I'm going to have one here temporarily. And I will do the same kind of commenting. And the rule is this rule here. There we go. ESLint, disable next line, this rule. There we go. Save. So cool, so we want to export this, and then now we can just do the import with the auto quick fix. Nice. And it actually made it one line shorter because it's fit in with the import section now. And now other people can use this millisecond in second if they want to do something else on a per second basis perhaps, or they want to do some time math. perhaps. Okay, so that's that. And now we have extract out constants. I'm going to put with a plural, even though there's only one there. And we're going to make another one quite shortly. So now I've kind of split out this next section into styling. Some of it's like refactor-ish styling, but just some styling stuff I wanted to do. So in regards to position, I have more links here. So I have explanations for why I'm doing this stuff. So in regards to the CSS variable position, currently I have everything as absolute. And when I was kind of reading absolute, it's like, it's removed from the normal document flow. No space is created, okay. It's positioned relative to the closest position ancestor. Now I think I'm by default, just by luck, it's positioning to HTML element then, because I don't think anything else is a positioned element. But what I want for the desktop, for the main, semantically main HTML element that I'm considering, put everything in here, I want it to be fixed, I think. Because fixed is, the element is removed from normal document flow, same as the other one, no space is given, okay. Position relative to the initial containing block established by the viewport. That's exactly what I want, because in CSS, I'm also using viewport units to set its position and its height and width. Sorry, to set its height and width. I'm not doing that for position. I am setting its position though at 0 in all levels, and then I'm setting its height and width based on the VW and VH, which are the viewport width and viewport height. So I feel like fixed is perfect here. So that's why I'm going to do it. So if we go into the styles, components, the style desktop, you see his position absolute. I want that to be fixed. And if I save that, it didn't break the app, it looks like. So cool. Simple enough. Fixed position desktop. That sounds like it was broken and I repaired it, but it's let's word that differently. Positioned desktop fixed. There we go. As fixed. Yeah. That's just more setting desktop as the main element. You know, it's locked to the viewport, the height and width of viewport, etc. So buttons. So we talked about this before, and I actually have a global rule here in which I've set a button, the background color is transparent, because some browsers have their own little default color that they add to the button. And another thing that I've found buttons add that I wanted to disable, that I just forgot to do last time, is the font family itself. So basically, I just want to inherit what I've already set at the body level here. I don't want some magical style sheet thing. So I'm going to set it to an inherit variable for font family. And that was about it. That's all I wanted to do for that commit. Reset font family for buttons. So buttons, just use the font family that I've already specified. And if more objects come up that are like that, we'll just do it more. So here's another thing I wanted to do. And if you look at the app here, if you look at the time, or sorry, if you look, you can see my cursor there. So you see I hover over the button, still a cursor. But when I hover over time, oh, it switches to that text and I can actually select the text. I don't want to do that. That's not something you can do in Windows. So the setting that we need to disable that is called user select. The user select CSS property controls whether the user can select text. Straightforward enough. So what do we want? I think we want none in this case. I think that's like off. The text of the element and its sub-elements is not selectable. Yeah. So I'm going to set that as the default for the body for now until further notice, basically, because that's how I want most things to act. And if I want you to be able to select the text in that way, I'll make it explicit. But in general, you can't do that in Windows. You know, if you're renaming an icon, at that point you can select the text. But other than that, you can't just like select it in the same way that you select browser text. So I think that that's consistent for us to fix that here. And we'll specify that here. Don't allow user select. Cool, cool. And then another styling I wanted to do, add taskbar item hover effect. Yeah, okay, cool. This is a little more in depth. I want to get to the commit where I did that so that I can kind of remember exactly how I did it, because that's going to help me explain it to you guys. Crazy, hey? So let's just copy and paste the first one I got here. So basically when I'm talking about the hover effect, if you know in Windows 10, if you hover over the start button, so you see user select, by the way, I didn't show you guys, but you see now I can't select the text. So if you see in my cursor, if I hover over the start button or if I hover over the clock, in Windows, it essentially changes the text of that box. Sorry, not the text, the color, the background color, the hover color, selected, you know, focused, whatever you call it. it changes that. So we just want to do the same. It's easy enough. And it's the same with the taskbar entry. When like a program is opened, it also does that. So basically any of those elements in the taskbar, we want to do that too. So let's do the styled clock first. It's just text. Now you see what I've got here on the clipboard. I've already kind of got it figured out. So basically I'm saying when you hover over the time element, the time and you're hovering, change the background color. And I've already set up a theme color. I haven't set it up, but I've already got a name for it, which I'm thinking call it taskbar hover. So now that I've got that, let's go into the theme and just add that. Taskbar color, hover, sorry. And we're not going to define it yet because I'm going to get into that. That's like part of this. And then let's add it to the type definition. It's just another string. And then let's go back into defining it. So I need to put something here. And what I'm going to use is something called HSLA. And it basically is, I'm going to find the link where I explain that because I don't completely remember what it is. I forgot what the H is hue. S is saturation, I bet. So this is a description for CSS color values. And in this case, the HSL colors defines a given color according to its hue, saturation, and lightness. Now, the reason I picked this one is I like the ability to adjust lightness. And you can do HSLA and adjust the alpha, the opacity, basically. So it gives us the option to kind of adjust those two things, which I kind of like. And I'm trying to remember what I set it to. I think I set it to, yeah, like 25%. Where is this here? Here. So I don't want to mess with the hue. Yeah, I don't want to mess with the saturation. I want the, yeah, because this is already 0, 0, 0, so it's not gonna, it doesn't matter, you know. If I say 50%, 100%, it's not gonna make any visual difference that I can think. Perhaps it would, but let's not mess with that. This I put to 25%, and this other thing I put to 60%, basically. So this is gonna require some fine tuning, and we'll kind of check it out here, and I'll kind of just eyeball it for now. At some point, maybe in a couple streams from now, we're going to go deep into trying to figure out exactly what it should be. But I've had a heck of a time doing it. It's very tricky to like reverse engineer exactly how the color should look in all scenarios and set something specific like that. So I haven't perfected that yet. But what I've done here, yeah, so I've set the lightness to 25% and I've set the opacity to 60%. And you'll see that that'll give us somewhat of an effect similar, but it needs some fine tuning. So we did that on the clock. Let's do the exact same thing on the start button. Add the exact same background setting, background color, and also on the taskbar entry as well, right here. So those three items are going to do that. Now there's one extra little trick here with the start button is that it also has, also when you hover over that in Windows, the start button changes from white to the highlight color, which we already have the highlight color, because we use it on the bottom of the taskbar, I believe. I think. Where are we using that? Dot highlight. Yeah, we're using it on the taskbar entries bottom border already. So within the start button, we're going to also use that, and we're going to say that I've already got this copied, I think, the SVGs, because this icon is an SVG, also have their color changed to that highlight color on hover. So let's save all of this and then let's check it out here. So now I got my cursor, and if I hover over, oh, there we go. And it did not change the background color. So as we can see, the clock also didn't change. So what happened there with that? Did I mess it up? Let's go to the colors again, the theme. So I set it here. Maybe these numbers are wrong, but this is exactly what I set. That's weird, isn't it? Oh, maybe this should be a percentage, actually. I don't know if that matters, but maybe it does. Oh man, it totally matters. Okay, cool. So that's good to know. So when you're setting the saturation, 0, don't do 0, do 0%. Okay, just do that. So now as you see, so when I hover, you can see that it does the effect. Same with the clock, so you get that little effect. So it's actually pretty good still. I don't know if I want to fine tune it too much. Let's try. I'm going to fine tune it to 20%. Let's see what that looks like. It looks more dark. I don't like how dark it is. So what about 80%? Maybe that's too light. Oh, that's not so bad. Maybe an 80% or like a 70. Right now I'm messing with the opacity. That looks pretty good. What about the lightness? What if I go like 75% on the lightness? What does that do? Oh, I don't like that. Yeah. What if I go like 5%? What does that look like? No, and that's too dark. So it's a real not too hot, not too cold thing. That doesn't look too bad. I think that's too bright though, honestly. So maybe 20%. You know, 25 was pretty good actually, but I like 70 here. So it's kind of just fine tuning, like I say. I think that's good enough. You see if I hover over the button and I hover over the clock that they have that effect. That's kind of what I wanted, so I'm happy with that. So we've added it to the theme, and we've added the type, we've added the clock that the hover effect happens. We've added it to a taskbar entry, even though I don't have a taskbar entry to show at the moment. And we've added to the start button. And we've also changed the color of the button itself. Cool. So what did I call that in my notes? And I'm going to just use that as the commit message because it's easier. Add taskbar item hover effect. That's fair. I like that. So it's already turning a little more Windowsy now. Now there's a little animation, I would call that. And now we're an hour in. And we're basically, that's like how it's been the last couple episodes, where this refactoring stuff before I get to the components almost always takes like an hour. So the next piece is the file manager that I wanted to talk to you guys about. And this one's tricky. This is tricky from a showing you point of view because it's like a million things I did. And we're gonna try to break them into little pieces and do them one at a time. And that's kind of what I got in my notes here. And the first piece that I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about, so it's kind of weird that I'm doing the file manager and I'm doing the file first. I guess that makes sense. I don't know. Maybe perhaps I'm doing it out of order, but this is the order I've decided to do it. So when I started thinking of a file manager, I already have the file system as I showed you guys in previous episodes here. If we go to the hooks, file system context, here's the file system. So it's using browser FS here, set BFS require, configure, part of browser FS. And basically it gives us this FS object that works just like Node.js. So we got these like pretend folders and pretend files, and they're mapped to our public folder here. And what I want to do is I want to make a folder called desktop, and I want the desktop folder to have the desktop icons. And I want the desktop icons to be like shortcuts mostly, maybe some files too. So we're going to need like a file entry component that kind of handles that and shows an icon and shows text. And it's going to need to interpret, and the shortcut files, it's going to need to know, okay, what icon do you want me to show? And what do you want me to do when the person double clicks this shortcut? So we're going to need that piece. And what's the next piece we need? Yeah, I mean, so that's the basics of why we need a shortcut. And like I said, I made the folder, and let's just make a file. For now, I'm not even going to give it an extension. I'm just going to call it hello world. So that's the file. And basically here we need to be like, the app I want you to run is the hello world app. And the icon I want you to use, for now, let's just say the favicon icon, and we'll put a path to it. So the path, it's right on the root, as you can see, it's right here. So we're just going to say favicon.ico because that's the name of the file. And we'll do a new line at the end. Don't do that. There we go. So that's essentially what we want it to look like. Now, when I started thinking about that, I started thinking, well, what kind of, could I use an existing shortcut format that allows me to write something that simple? And if we go to the browser, I can show you really quickly what I decided on, I think. So if you see here, my cursor's up here, and I'm on the GitHub link up here. If I just click this view site information little lock here, if I click that and I drag it on my desktop and I let go, it actually creates a file. And I'll put that file in VS Code, and I'll go to it and I'll show you guys what it is. So this is the file that I just created, and it's called an internet shortcut. And it's got something called a URL, and this is a standard file format. And I started thinking, that's a cool one to use, because if people actually got a hold of one of these icons, maybe I could actually make it where when you click a .url file that's made in my special format, it'll go to my website and based on the URL piece here, and it'll know what to do. It'll know the rest, it'll just like load the app or whatever. So, and it just seemed like a simple format. So let's just do it like this, right? So I'm going to copy this format and paste it here. And so the URL, let's just use the app for now. Maybe in the future, we'll have like a proper URL / question mark app equals or something like that. I don't know. We'll have a fancier way to do it. But for now, let's just say the URL equals the name of the app. And now we need this icon piece. So we need to know what is the icon format. And that's when we get into this file. Let me open that file again. You guys, if you can see here, is .url extension. Cool. So let's name our file that. Rename it to .url. There we go. Now we want to know what a URL file format looks like. I happen to have a link, an unofficial link, because I couldn't find an official one, but this is the unofficial one, an unofficial guide to the URL file format. Cool. And if you look at it, basically the next piece that I care about, so you see this is the right one, internet shortcut URL. Okay, we saw that. Blah, 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 icon file. That is perfect. That's what I'm going to use. So this isn't like completely going to make it be like interchangeable, interoperable or something, but this is just me deciding, hey, I want to use some kind of standard format. Let's just use this one. So now we know it's called icon file. We're going to use the same value. And there we go. Now we have our partially valid .url file. And I think that's probably good enough for that commit. Actually, there's one other piece I want to do then. So now we've added that to the public folder. Now remember we have this public.json file that kind of remembers what's in the public folder for the fs function to work properly, because its read is using the JSON file. So we need to rerun that piece. So npm run build fs, I believe it is. There we go. And now if we look at public, now it also knows about the hello world file. That's what we wanted. So now we can just make that little note there, created the desktop shortcut icon. Created desktop shortcut, not just the icon, sorry. There we go. So now we got that piece. So the next piece, I'm doing this in a weird order, but it's gonna slowly make sense that we're gonna have a file manager at the end of this. The next thing I wanted to do when I started thinking about, okay, so we're gonna wanna be able to read this internet shortcut, right? Makes sense. First we need a way to read, let's do this in a different order then, because what I said makes sense, but then that's not the correct order that I have here. The use file hooks is more about the file manager I need a directory list. So I need to take a directory and I want a list of files. So use files, but let's finish off our thought on the shortcut, right? And getting information about the process to run and the icon. That's the info we need. So the hook I care to make right now is the file info hook, right? So if we go into hooks and we make a new one called use file info. So I want this to be for getting the file information for the shortcut. So when we get the shortcut path, we need to know what to do with that. So let's just do the little boilerplate stuff that I do with all these functions. Const use file. There's probably some really quick way to do this, but I like doing it the old school way. This is going to be a hook. As far as what we need to pass into the hook, well, we need a path of the file. So we'll call it path here. It's going to be a string. And we're going to export that use file info like so. And there we go. We have the basics of our function. It's extremely simple. And what do we want the file info to return? Well, I think like we said, we care about the icon and the process, what process you want to run. So we'll say the icon, that's going to be a string to the path for now. What did it try to do there? That's weird. Oh, okay, yeah. I'm defining the types here, but right now I want to export. So let's say we export icon as a string. And I was thinking for the process, essentially we want the ID. That's what we need to do. So I'm going to call it the PID, because that's like a cool shortcut way to be like process ID. So I'm just going to say PID. That's old school or new school, I don't know. Now I wanted to define the type as well for what this is going to be. So let's call it file info. What have I done for other hooks where I do that? I basically just call it what it is, I think. Yeah, so let's just stick to that. Call it file info. And the file info, like I said, is an icon and a PID. And in both cases, these are strings, I believe. Yeah, both cases, they're strings. One day this icon might be a component, but that's not today. Returns that. There we go. So now it's just complaining because we don't use path. So now we have to kind of flesh this out a little bit more. So what do I want to do? So when someone runs this, here's the scenario with this thing here. I use file info. and it's called desktop/hello-world.url. That's the use case basically for this function. So I think we would do a use effect here because essentially we want the hook, as soon as the hook can, we want to do this. So it'll be that's the lifecycle hook. As soon as it's ready, it's rendered, or it's ready to do something, let's do it. And it's going to change. I mean, I guess in theory it's going to change if path changes, or rerun, sorry. And we also need FS here. So here's a good opportunity to do that use file system that I was talking about, that I've added, the useContext hook. So I think we can just do here const, we want FS, and we want to do use file system, and here it already knows what it is. There we go, and just like that we have access to FS now. So we'll put it in here like so. And in the function here is where we're going to use FS. Now we're going to check if FS is defined because it's not defined necessarily right away. Browser FS kind of has to initiate first and configure. So we'll make sure to check for that. And what else do we want to do here? I'm just kind of trying to remember. We want to make sure, we need to know the extension name first, actually, of the file, because only if it's a URL do we want to check the shortcut stuff. So actually, before we get to that piece, we're returning icon, we're returning PID. These are going to be states that we're going to do use state with. So icon, set icon equals use state. And that is an empty string right now, and it's going to be the same kind of thing for PID. Set PID, and it's also empty string right now. So now this can be just like that, which is the kind of the way I like to do the returns I said for the hooks, is it just dumps the variables kind of. And now here we've got it using use state, which I have not yet imported. Let's import that. There we go. So the goal of this use effect is going to be to set the icon and set the PID. So like I said, we need to know the extension name. I wonder if I can just do ext or extension. How about that? And in this case, for getting the extension and for doing like file name manipulation and information on, we can use path. We can use node's path, and during Webpack, it's going to bring that in. So it's okay that we're using that there. I think that we're using it within like a node context, but it's a front end thing. It worked anyways in my tests. So we have the path, and basically there's a function called extName, I think it's called. Yeah. And if we press tab, it imports here. We don't need that little node piece. That's silly. Just path. There we go. So extension name, and we just pass in path, and we get out extension. And now we need to check, like I said, if extension equals the URL extension, then we know it's a shortcut, and we can do shortcut stuff to set the icon and the PID. Now, if it's not an extension, there is another scenario where we know the icon and we know the PID, or do we know the PID? I guess if we know the icon, that doesn't really tell us anything. We could not know the icon because I had this coded differently. Basically, we can know the icon basically if it's an image, because if it's an image, we're going to use the image as the icon. So let's do that. Else if, and let's just say image file extensions. This is going to be like a constant list that I'm going to keep somewhere. Includes the extension name, the extension. Then that will mean that we can set the icon to be the path, because it can be the image that it is. So at least in that scenario, we know icon. And this part's a little tricky because there has to be an other case here for the PID. Let's not focus on that just yet. Let's make this image file extensions piece now. That's just an implementation idea. So like I said, we want this to be like a list of what kind of images we'll allow. So let's say JPEG, let's say PNG, basically anything the browser supports. And on that note, I actually have a URL that we can look at what the browsers typically support. So if we go to it here, image file type and format guide. This is another, I go to MDN all the time, these web docs. You see here common image file types, and it shows you the extensions here. So APNG, I've never heard of that. AVIF, that's a new format. That's a cool one. You guys should check that out. GIF, JPEG, JPEG, etc. You know, the familiar ones. You guys know them, and some we don't. So basically, I've already kind of copied all these. I kind of looked through that entire document and just got every extension they mentioned that was considered a browser supportable one. And I'm going to paste it in here just to show you guys. So that's it right there. Just save you guys the time of me like copy pasting every single one in that list. It's just the ones on that page. And we're just going to go right to moving this into a constant because that's a nice little constant that I want to use. And that's a little use for our constant file that we have now. So export that one. And now we don't need this rule anymore because now it wouldn't want to default export because you want to export two things. So there we go. So that's nice. And now if we go here, we can just import that. Import, nice. And yeah, so if we know it's an image file extension, we can set the icon based on that. And as far as the URL, this is trickier. So how did I do this? Right, so we need to get the shortcut. And to do that, we're going to need to use the file system. And to use the file system, we're going to have to get a callback. Because the file system, just the way it works with asynchronous calls and stuff, it's going to have to it's going to literally request the file via HTTP and give it back to us. So we're just going to have to set up a callback. So basically my idea, I'm just going to have like a get shortcut function that's going to pass in the, what am I passing in here? The path that we got. And we're going to have to pass in the file system too, because we're going to need to use it again. I guess in theory, I could make a custom hook for this, like use shortcut. It's trickier here because first you have to know it's a shortcut. And then I can't do a hook here because I'm in a conditional. So I think that I'm just going to do it this way for now until I decide to refactor it at a later date. I'm just going to give get shortcut the file system so that it can work with it. Also now it knows it's defined, so I don't have to do this check because I've already done the check here. So if we got this far, the file system is defined, so we can be clear there. So let's say this is the promise. So with this and this, it can go off and tell the browser, give me the file, and then I'm going to pass it off to the callback. So I'm just going to go .then, and then we're going to write what the callback will be. And what do I want to get back? I basically want to get back the shortcut object, which we haven't defined yet, but we know that the shortcut is based on that format here. So the shortcut object, type object, is going to be like URL icon file, I guess. Do we want internet shortcut too? I don't think we need that. That's redundant. I think I was before extracting that, but that's freaking pointless. So let's just get URL and icon. So let's assume what we're going to get here in the callback function is just pass the shortcut data, which all we care about right now is URL and icon file. And yeah, that's good. And then we want the function that it's going to run, which is going to be to set the icon as the icon file and to set the PID as the URL in this case. So that looks reasonably good, and I'll save that. It doesn't know what this is yet because we don't have that function. I made that up. But that's the basics of how that will work. Now what's missing here, I don't have a way to handle unknown. So if it's not a .url and it's not an image, currently I don't have an unknown image. I probably should. I guess it's just going to be a broken image basically then. But I still could have the PID. The trick with the PID is, see here it'll be undefined. So I need like another else. Yeah, let's just do that for now. But then I'm going to be running it twice, which is a little frustrating for me. So I can do a set PID here and I can do a set PID there. That's the thing, because then I know if this runs that I don't want to do set PID again, so I can't do it outside the condition, not easily. So let's just do it in here twice. So the basics of what I wanted to do here, this is going to be a mockup function for now, but when we know that it's an image, but we have an extension, we know the path. So let's say it's .jpeg. I need to find a process that can run my JPEG files. So that's going to be some kind of image viewer app that I'm going to have to make in the future. So the idea that I had basically was that we get a function like get process by file extension, and we pass in the path, or we pass in the extension, sorry, because we already know the extension. So if, like I say, if this was .url, it would get an image viewer. So in this case, it's always going to get an image viewer, basically. Maybe I should almost just be like set the PID as image viewer. That's kind of a fun way to do it. Maybe I'll do that. So it's not going to work right now, but if I made an image viewer app, then an image viewer was one of the items that was in the file list using the use file info, it would tell me, oh, use the image viewer to open this shortcut or whatever I display, this preview, this list entry within the file manager. Yeah, that'll work. I like that. So then the final thing here, this would be like set icon as, let's just do it, even though I don't have the icon yet, unknown.svg. And I think here it would have to be, I need a folder for my icons. Let's do it, icons folder and unknown.svg basically. And let's even, hey, let's just do it. Let's just do it here. So public, I mean, it's pointless because I don't have anything unknown right now. So let's not even worry about it. Let's just leave it blank. If it's unknown, it's blank. And if it's blank, we'll think of something else. So what I wanted to do, like I was saying, that process function, here we go, get process by file extension. So in the case where if it's a URL, we know how to get the PID based on what's in the shortcut file. If it's an image, we know to use the image viewer and use the path as the icon. Otherwise, we are going to try to find what the process could be by the extension. So let's say if it's a .dos file, a DOS file, maybe it would have the DOS app, the DOS emulator. So this function for now is just going to be extremely simple though, because I don't have anything for it yet. It's going to take an extension as a string, and I'm going to do underscore extension to say it's unused right now, because what I'm going to return right now is just a blank string. So it currently won't even update PID basically in any reasonable way. So I think we have what will work as a hook here, minus the shortcut part. We're going to do the get shortcut part now too. But if you see here, so let's imagine we do, like let's imagine in the file manager, we got like const icon PID equals, it'd be like that, use file info, and we'd have the path, I think, to the file. So we'd have path here. So it would just give us the icon, which we could pass right into the file entry item, and it would give us the PID, which we could pass into the functions for what happens when you double click it, to say when it double click it, open this process, you know? So I think I'm pretty happy with how that hook should work in theory. Just do some throw some caveats in there. What else did I need? What else am I missing? So I need to define this and I need to define this. I've already defined this, and I'm going to move this to like a files function, I think, within utils. So I think I already have a process one. Yeah, I've got process functions. I'm going to make one called file functions.ts, and we're going to have this function in here, which gets the process by file extension. And we're going to have the get shortcut function as well. Export const get shortcut. And what do I pass get shortcut? The path and the file's fs object, like that. And what did we say path was? Path is a string, and fs is the fs module, which we know about. And what does get shortcut return? It returns a promise. And I don't remember what that promise has in it. I also didn't write this correctly. This would be like that, I think. What does it return? Oh yes, it returns the shortcut. We haven't even defined the shortcut type. Let's define that too. Type let's just call it shortcut. Type shortcut. And it would have a URL, which was a string. And it had the icon file, which was a string. Am I right? There we go. And like I said, the shortcut is what it returns. And let's just prove that by doing URL is that, and icon file is that. That fulfills a bunch of stuff. If I press save there, what's it complaining about first? Is not assignable to, oh, okay, because this isn't currently a promise. That's okay. We just need to create that. So I just want to double check my notes here, because It's not trivial to make that, but it's working with FS. So let's just assume and make an ass out of you and me, because that's what my old teacher used to say about assuming, people that assume things. So like we said, we know FS exists now. So let's just work with that. So we have to return a promise. Let's start there. New promise, and the promise resolve is what we want. We're not going to work with the error for now. There we go. So resolve is where we're going to actually pass this little piece here, like so. Not going to return it there, so we can put that in there, and that might make it happier. It doesn't seem to have. Do not use new for side effects. Really? Oh, okay. This piece doesn't need to be here. I'm returning the promise. There we go. That's a little better. And now it's like, hey, you're not even using path. So here's where FS comes in. So we need FS dot, I think it's read file, because we want to read the file, right? And we need the path. And now here the return is not the data at first. It tells you what it is here. It's the BFS callback function. And the BFS callback function, first it has the error, which we're just going to say error underscore error because it's undefined. Then it has the RV buffer, which I'm going to call the contents of the file. And I'm going to set a default here because I found this is because it can be undefined, but I want to assume it's a buffer because it's typically returning a buffer. That's just how they define it. So I'm going to say equals buffer.from empty. So if content is undefined, just give me an empty buffer because I'm going to do some buffer stuff with it. You know, I don't want to check it. And I just like having default objects, honestly. I'm getting hooked on that. So now what do we want to return? We wanted to return this resolve function within the FS part after its callback. So we want it to return just the contents? No. This is like a whole other tricky part that I wanted to get into, and it gets into another piece that we need, which is the INI. So that's another cool part of this .url file that I forgot to mention, is it's essentially an INI format. I don't know if you guys recognize this, but when this like bracketing with this equals is very similar, if not exact, to the INI format of files. And there's actually an NPM extension we can use called INI, nicely enough. It's an INI parser / serializer. And you can see it's this kind of format, just like the format we use. And ini.parse, and you can even see here them using a node fs command. Now they're using file sync, but we're not going to use sync commands with browser fs because it complains about that, and it's just not the ideal way to do it. We're going to make our commands asynchronous in a way, in that we're using promises basically. We're not doing async await right now. I might at some point, but I think it'll require more boilerplate to convert browser fs to work that way, so I haven't messed with it. But here's the basics of this: ini parse. And then you get back essentially the object. So with that in mind, let's go back into the code here, into the shortcut function, and we'll say, what do we say? What did I write in my previous one? Because it's actually, again, not trivial to remember that. Oh, it's so simple actually. Yeah, so we need to parse the shortcut and we just need to get it back as an object. So the contents, which are a buffer, as we know, and we want to say to string, because the parse command wants a string, not a buffer. And that's the basics of that. And then we just have to clarify, because ini parse doesn't know what it's getting here, but we know what we want it to think it is, at least, as a shortcut. And now if we take that and we just resolve with that, there we go. It stops complaining, other than the fact it doesn't know what ini is yet. And now we don't want to. Now we want to return that. Or do we? I guess we don't care, but resolve returns void, which works perfectly fine for this. So we're going to get rid of the fact that that was a function, save this, and there we go. So now all that's missing is ini. We need to add that to our package, npm ini. And now I'm going to do something here, and I'm just going to do it, is if we go into the browser here again, we go to ini, and we look at their tags, we can see that their latest version is 2.00. And I'm just going to explicitly install 2.00 because, again, NPM's wonkiness, I did this command and it did not install the latest for me. So I don't know if they've just not marked 2.0 as the latest, but I'm just going to be explicit here and say, hey, give me 2.0. And I think in package.json, it's still going to allow me a little flexibility in that it's going to have the up arrow. Yeah, so it's still like, okay, we can upgrade patch versions, so I'm happy with that. And now if we close this and we import ini, I have to do it the old-fashioned way, it looks like. Import ini from, is that the way to do that? Let's just check the browser here and see if that's how they were doing it. Import. Oh, they don't even do it. Let's just see how I did it. Oh yeah, just like that. So import ini from ini. That's simple. And what's it complaining about now? Let's close the file function and let's open it again, and that'll fix it because that's how VS Code works. Okay, I did not. This should be type here because I want to type. But why is ini complaining? Oh, okay. I should look at the error. So it's actually saying that there's a types declaration possibly, or wants one. So it attempts to suggest we do npmi dev dependency of the types for ini. And in this case, luckily there is a type file created, so all the better. There we go, error went away. So you see the simplicity of this is pretty nice now. So we make a new promise, we do the fs read file command, we get the contents. If there's nothing, let's just make an empty buffer because we're gonna convert it to string, we're gonna parse that, and then we're gonna resolve and say that this will be a shortcut that's expected. So we can say return. And if I don't put that here, I think it complains. Yeah, you see, because it's like parse doesn't know what you expect. Let's just say, hey, it's a shortcut. So we got that. What's this complaining about? Missing return type. Oh, okay. I want a string. There we go. I love the explicitity of it. Be explicit. So there we go. So we have our file functions, get shortcut, and this mock function for now, because we don't have any other processes or apps yet that can run any functions. Now we can import these. Import this and import this. Nice. So it imported those and we save that. So that kind of got rid of all of our errors, and essentially we've got it here. So now we have this use file info that's going to give us the icon and PID, and it's going to give us asynchronously because it's got this promise thing here. If it needs to check the shortcut file, it's going to read it and give us update the information when it needs it, or it might just be able to go straight to updating it if it knows it's an image. And then if it has no idea what it is, it's going to try to check the file extension to tell you how to run it. And in the future, we're going to also set some kind of unknown file icon here, possibly. But I don't have an icon right now, and it's just not necessary at the moment. So what did we do here? We created the file info hook, basically, in a lot of steps. Let's just make sure. So we installed the ini. We made that big file that I just explained. We added the image file type, so we know for those files to show that the image itself as the icon. And we made the little get shortcut function that we need for when we're grabbing that shortcut that I made. So cool. Use file info plus shortcut, plus get shortcut. Get shortcut function? Yep. That's a nice one there. I like that. So we can close all this just to clean up our little space. And what's next? So now we need the use files hooks. Use files. I think we do, because again, getting into what I'm going to need from the file manager, I'm going to need a way where I get a directory. Hey, I want to know what's in the desktop directory. And then I need a hook called use files that does exactly what this other hook did, which is to asynchronously get files, because you can't just get them synchronously. So let's make another hook called use files.ts. Cool. And again, let's do our little boilerplate. Use files. It's going to get the directory. What is it getting? Good question, Dustin. Yeah, it's going to get the directory. And I wonder if it should be... This won't be a promise because this is a hook. So if it's going to do something with those files, this is a hook, right? Yeah, I want this to be a hook. Ugh. At some point, I'm going to have to write the implementation. It's getting a little too theoretical here, but let's just see what I want to make happen, and then it'll make more sense. So I want to give it a directory, and I want to get back files that I can work with. So because it's a hook, does it need to be a hook? It might not be. This is something that I've been thinking about with my refactors. It's going to be a next episode thing, but sometimes it's like, do I need a hook here, or can I just use like some kind of utility function and just pass in something? Like how I passed in the fs part to get shortcut. Maybe I should have just had some kind of hook for that, but I couldn't quite think of a good way to do it is the tricky part. So maybe in the future it'll make more sense, and then I'll be able to use a hook there. I'm going to do a hook here for this part. So because it's a hook, we can just return the files. Why? That's a good question. Let's just do the other part here. Export default useFiles. And like I said, what do we want to return with that? We want to return the, I think we want this almost to be like the mapProcesses function, but in hook form. How did I use this before? That's what's confusing me. We need to take a peek at the file manager here, because this is where it gets tricky, where it's like so high level how you have to do certain things. Yeah, I'm using a hook in a weird way. Ugh, I'm not a fan of it, but it's kind of cool. So let's just try it for now. Basically, I want to use files and I want to get back almost like the map files function, which makes me question, it's like, should I just be using map files here from the file system consumer? That feels more right, to use a map files function from the file system consumer. Let's try to do that. Let's try to do that and see how far we get with that. No, let's write what I have, and then possibly we do that. Let's make a comment here called map files from process consumer question mark. Could be a to-do, but I'm not 100% sure I'm happy with this implementation, even though I haven't even shown it to you guys yet. But let's kind of write it out. So the basics of what, like I say, I want to return the, oh man, I don't even know what I want to return anymore. Let's write the file manager. This can be another piece, but let's get the file manager in place, because it's hard to show you guys what I want to do with it here. So we want to make another component called file manager.tsx, and we're going to do the exact same thing here, where we go const file manager. In this case, it's a component, so we're going to need an object, and we're going to pass in the directory to it, and we'll call this file manager props, because we want to define the props. And what does it return? It returns a JSX element, presumably, because it's a functional component. Export default file manager. There we go. So we got that little boilerplate done. We need this piece here. Like I said, we want to pass in the directory, which will be a string. And I'm going to go right into the usage too, just so we can really cement what this is doing. So the usage where I'm going to do it is on the pages, the index here. So remember here, we got our desktop, we got our processes provider. We're going to need the processes, because the icons will be able to, the file manager will be able to open processes. So it needs access to that provider. And I'm going to put it above the taskbar. So the desktop icons are the first thing you'd see, then the taskbar, then the windows, perhaps. So the file manager would go right here, and the directory that I want it to be is the desktop. So that's how it'll work. And can I import this? No, not yet. Let's import it by typing it. I don't know where it'll go here. And it's called file manager. Is it in the system? Yeah. So now it's complaining about some organizational stuff. There we go. So I've broken the app. Cool. I don't know why. Why did I break it? Because I didn't save this yet? Yeah, file manager returns nothing. Okay, so I need to return stuff. I need to do a couple things. I'm going to return straight up JSX, or I'm going to only use JSX, as I attempt to do with most of my components. So what is a file manager going to be? For now, I think what I want it to be is an organized list of items, and I'm going to extract this out into a styled component and stuff very quickly. And then the list items would essentially be the file entries. And within the file entries are going to be figures, I think. Yeah, the figure is going to be the image, which will be the icon. Same thing we did for taskbar entries, where it's represented an icon and a caption. So here would be the icon image, and the source is the icon, and the alt would be the name, let's say. And then the fig caption will be also the name. There we go. So that's the gist of one of the file entries within my file manager. Pretty straightforward. So now we need to turn this into something that gets listed through. So here's where I've used this useFiles idea. And I feel like a map files like that. Where is it where I use mapProcesses? here. This makes more sense to me, is doing something like that. But I think I'm gonna first do useFiles, and then I can turn useFiles into like a mapProcesses thing if I'm happy with how it looks. So here's the basics of my idea for it, is like the directory goes in here, and then the callback is going to be where we go over the items, which is exactly how the mapping function works with the processes. So it's going to take the file and it's going to create a file entry, I guess. That's where this stuff's going to go. There we go. So that's the basics of that. Now, I think that the file is just going to get passed along to the file entry, and the file entry is where I'm going to do the useFileInfo. So let's make our file entry component here, another functional component. And what does the file entry get? Well, we need that name, and then we can use the path. Remember, file. Where's file info here? Where is useFileInfo? useFileInfo. Remember, file info needs path. So let's say a file entry just has the path and the name. LMNOP. It should be name and then path, alphabetically speaking. And this is the file entry props. There we go. And name path. We're gonna, again, strings. It's always strings nowadays. Everything's strings. At some point we'll probably throw some components around, but if strings work, use them, hey? And we return the function. Cool, so that's our file entry, and actually we don't need to make a function here. We already know the file entry is going to be like that. A little bit. Oops. So now we have our path. Oh, actually this file entry probably will need to be... yeah, because if I want to do the useFileInfo hook, this is going to need to be a function. And it can return the JSX here, but that needs to be like that because I need to do const icon and PID from the useFileInfo hook that I made, right? Remember I passed in the path there? So there, now I got icon, we got name, so we're not using PID. Otherwise it's pretty happy with that at the moment, but something's still wrong. Oh yeah, this stuff looks wrong. So file entry needs to be used here now. And oops, this can be just self-closing. And remember with file, we needed to pass, we need name and path, and we're also gonna need key because we're looping over it. So the key can be file because file is a string, I think. File is just the name, is just the path. What is file? Have we established what file is? I don't think we have. We have directory, yeah, file will just be the file name. Directory plus file name would be the path. So that's where we're gonna need to use some path commands again. So let's say the name. So to get the name, remember file will have the extension. So we need to get the base name. And the way base name works is you put in the file here, and then you also need to specify the extension if you want to remove the extension. So we're also gonna need to get the extension name again here because we don't have it here. We have it in useFileInfo. I guess we could, no, because we're doing file entry here. Let's just do it this way. I like this way. It's clean. Path is a simple function. And we again pass the file in here. So this is a way from essentially to get from like helloworld.url to get hello world. There's already existing functions. And then we need path. And for path, we can do a resolve, which is also part of the path function. And we can just pass in elements and it figures it out. It kind of puts it all together. So the directory and the file make up the path. So you figure out the rest, sir. And we didn't import extension name, but it should be pieced here. There we go. And now we can import useFileInfo too. Cool, that's good progress. So, oh, we haven't finished useFiles yet. What's it complaining about PID? PID is just saying isn't used. So where PID would be used would be on the, we need like a button, I think. We need a button element here. I guess the button could be here. And the figure within it. Yeah, because it needs to be like a clickable element. Otherwise, we're going to have accessibility complaints. So we got button here. And on button on click is going to be the open function, open, and we pass in the PID. And if you remember, open, I think in our processes, you see we have an open function and it takes in the ID for the process. Maybe this should be called PID too. Maybe. Let's call it PID here too. It's nicer. PID. Is there anywhere else where I call it ID? No. Well, here. Yeah, this stuff too. I preferred called PID because it's actually really nice. Really succinct and still small. PID. So yeah, oh, here I'm using process ID. Let's just stick with PID, right? I think PID's self-explanatory. I just like it. You see it everywhere in OS stuff, so I think it makes us look more OS-y if we have that. This ID is good the way it is. It's not, maybe it's a TID, the timeout ID. Let's just stick with PID. Let's not go overboard with TID. So we've done a bunch of file changes there. We're gonna have to somehow separate from the other changes we did, but I got PID happy there and did a bunch. So remember, open takes PID, but we don't have access to open yet. To get access to open, we also can do the useFileSystem command. So take open from useFileSystem. Oh wait, that's not useFileSystem. What am I talking about? I want to do process stuff, dude. Use processes. There we go. We got that too. Cool. So what's it complaining about here? Missing an explicit type. Oh yeah, so if it's a button, you have to say this. We're going to change this anyways in a second. But there we go. That stopped it from complaining. I don't know what I used last time, because why is it? Oh yeah, that's exactly how I did it last time. Button, figure, image. Yeah, that's the basics of it. So this is going to be another styled component as well. And I'm thinking of putting this, I don't know. I was thinking of putting that in the file manager, the li, this, well, let's get these styled components first. Let's make styled components now. So the trick here with the styled components is in the near future, remember how I was saying with the file manager, I want it to be that for the desktop, I'm happy with ordered list and list items. But for like the file explorer, I think I might want it to be a table. But I'm not going to worry about that for now. I'm just going to assume there's only one kind of file entry and one kind of file manager. But there might be another version of a file manager that's a table with table items versus this list item one. So, but we're not going to get to that in this episode, I think. So let's just assume it's all list items. So let's make a styled component called the styled file entry. It's styled.li. Like so. That's how you make a styled component. And I don't have any attributes for it right now, but that's okay at the moment. We'll replace this. I'm gonna let this live here in the file entry, but in the near future I might move to file manager. We'll see once I have a file explorer component. And then the OL one we're also going to change into another styled component. That's going to be the styled file manager, and it's an organized list, ordered list. And now we need to move those into the styled folder, styles, components, system, yeah. But we're going to make another folder called files, I think. Are we? Why is the taskbar one capital T? System, oh, okay. Yeah, maybe the files should be capital F then. Let's call it files. Save this. Let's move our file manager into there, like so. And let's do the same for this here. Files with a capital F. Files, there we go. And in here I wanted to make my two files, the styled file manager.ts, yeah, and the styled file entry. Styled file entry.ts. And in the future we'll have more of these. In the future, that one's like that, and this one's like this. And maybe it'll automatically know to import styled, partially. Export default. So I have no styles here at the moment, but I'm probably gonna copy paste something in and show you guys what I decided on, because fine tuning the styling is like difficult, and that's like another episode. Just to do like the simplest thing can take you hours to get it exactly right. Eyeballing it, being close enough, that's easy. Okay, so for now, we're not gonna have any styles for either of these, but we've got the components. We can now import them in here. Oh, that didn't import what I wanted. I don't know why it always tries to import React when it doesn't know. It's like, maybe it's React. We'll just type it in here, styles. What was it? Components, then it was system, then it was files, then it was styled file entry. Yes. And it's very similar for the other one. Get rid of this. The file manager had the styled file manager. And that's like this and like that. Cool. And then we're going to make another file called the file entry.tsx, and we're going to move my file entry there because we don't want to make this file too bloated. So there's some of the file entry stuff. Here's another piece here. And also it just separates the concerns. Then it's more obvious, oh, okay, this stuff was only for the file entry. This piece is here, so I didn't need any of that. And the file manager just has the little path functions. Oh, again, it tried to do that. Tricky, tricky. There we go. So the file manager looks a lot more simple. There's our file entry, which it wants me to clean up. Nice. And I'm not exporting this yet. Export default. There we go. And I'm not importing that. I'm not exporting. I'm not importing. I'm not doing nothing. Styled file manager. Yeah. And now this is a component in the system, in the files, in the file entry. There we go. And it wants to do some organization stuff there. Perfectly fine with me. So we've saved. So the file manager tries to load on the desktop. And the file manager has a styled file manager, which is an OL, ordered list, that has a useFiles hook that takes a directory and then gives you a mapping function. And eventually we'll turn this into map files, I think, but one step at a time. And the file entry has the name of the file and it has the correct path. So let's just move away from that for a second and look at this piece. We got our file entry where it takes the name and path, uses path to get the icon and PID. What did I do here? This is interesting. So on click only gets us one little piece. There's also like on keyboard down, there's also double click. So we're going to deal with all the different clicks at one point. And I'm thinking for now, I'm just going to put two of them. I'm going to do the on key down one as well. On key down. And that is, and also another aspect with this is with React, it's not ideal to put the functions inside your render piece because then it remakes this every single time. What we want to do is we want to make this a callback. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it on activate. So that rather than say on click, because keyboard could also do it, rather than say on double click, you know, I'm just going to say activate. We activated it. And I'm going to use my trusty use callback. And I'm going to say the callback is just this function right here, basically. It doesn't require anything. It already knows the PID. The dependency is that PID, and it's also the open function itself, which I don't think will change, but it could, I guess. There we go. So I guess it will change at least once. So now with onActivate, let's just pass that directly into these functions here. And at some point, we'll turn this into like onActivate props or something, let's say. And you can do something like this. And you can turn these into this. This is like kind of another tricky thing that we'll probably do at some point. So you turn this into an object, and then I can have it all just like back to my prop spreading, which I don't know if it's a good idea. But then this button turns into something that has all these click functions. It's got on click, it's got on key down, you know? So I might do something like that. But there's also a few libraries I want to look into. So for now, this is the basics of what I want to do with it. It'll on clicks or on key downs. And I haven't even specified enter. Just like if you touch the icon and then you click anything on the keyboard, do activate for now. Or if you click it. And the thing it'll do is open the PID. And we know the PID in this case will be hello world because it will have got it from the shortcut. So cool. So that piece works. So what's not working now is the fact that we never did that useFiles function properly. So now we got to get to that, which now we know what we want, basically. We want this and the file. It's going to be a mapping function. So this is the callback to the mapping function, actually. As confusing as that is. So useFiles. So what did we have here? Let's undo that. So yeah, it gets a directory, and then it also needs a callback here. It also needs to specify the callback. And the callback is going to expect a file as a string, and it's going to return the JSX element, I guess. Element, JSX element, yeah. Oop, there we go. I think that, oh yeah, we need to say callback. Sir. There we go. So there's a callback function that's gonna expect a file and return a JSX element. And then useFiles itself is gonna have to return a bunch of JSX elements. Yeah, I think I'm definitely gonna switch to this like mapProcesses function at some point, because I don't like, this just seems like a weird way to do it. I've been confused about this all week. So I'm gonna keep this comment in here. It's a double comment now. So what do we need to do? We need the fs function, right? So let's do the getting of fs through the useFile system. Oop, file system. There we go. Now we have fs, and again we want to do a use effect because we need everything to be mounted and everything. These file functions are very similar to each other. It depends on fs, and it depends on the directory. The callback, does it depend on? No, the callback's not going to change, but the directory could. The callback I don't think would change. It doesn't, I mean, I guess it could, but what am I, oh no, I don't even need a callback for that, because what I'm doing here, like I said, I want to return the files. So to make this asynchronous, this has to be another state setting command. So I'll just say the files are here, and we set files. So the files are going to start initially empty, and it's just an empty array. And we'll specify here what the array is going to be. It's going to be a string array, and that's okay. I don't know what it's expected, 0 arguments, but got, oh, this should be use state. What am I doing? Use files, use state. There we go. And I had use state imported. Cool. So there we go. And it's not complaining there. And now we need in the use effect, again, we check if fs exists, because yeah, we need to wait for it. And then once it exists, we go fs.read the directory in this case. And the directory is this directory. And then the callback is same as last time. It's getting an error that we don't care about, and it gets contents. And in this case, what's the other time where I got content? What did I do with it? Oh yeah, I set it to a buffer because it can be a buffer for the file, but for the directory, the content is going to be an empty array because it's going to be an array of strings. So it could still be undefined, but if it's undefined, just give us an array, basically is what I'm saying here. And what do I want to do when this callback runs? I want to set the files to be the contents. There we go. So that's basically that piece. Now what's it complaining about now? Oh, callback. I haven't used callback yet. So right, we're returning the JSX elements here. So it's going to be the files mapped. Yeah, the files is going to be each one. It's going to be mapped to the callback function. There we go. Yeah, that's what useFiles should be doing. So now that I have useFiles, I need to import it in the file manager. There we go. And now if I save that, maybe we have enough. Ooh, there we do. And you see in the top here, we have hello world with a broken image for some reason. Let me just inspect that image and see what's up there. Yeah, it didn't get the image at all. So what happened? Was there anything in the console to tell me that? Oh, the console's angry. Let's do a refresh of the whole page just to make sure. Okay, that didn't make a difference, but the console errors went away, so why did it not load that? Interesting. Let's walk through it here. So we get the file manager. We have a file entry here. So icon should have came from useFileInfo. So if we go to our useFileInfo hook, and it probably should have got here, you would think. Let's see how far it got then. Let's do a console log here and see what the extension was. So if I add that there and I just got my console log open, yeah, .url, that's expected. So what about here when it got to the shortcut part? Maybe this part's not correct. Also, oh yeah, this part's not correct. Because my expectation from the data was that I would get back the INI file exactly as it is. And the INI file has a format of this internet shortcut piece. So if I want to split that out of the shortcut, I actually need to do like something like this. There we go. But now it's complaining because the type is wrong. So I don't want to do this. I'm just going to do a little more work in my get shortcut function to kind of clean that up. So instead of this little piece here, we're going to have a full function, and I'm going to have to do a little bit more. There we go. Maybe I won't need this as shortcut in the end. I don't know. Actually, I probably will. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to be an internet shortcut now. So let's just call it shortcut here. And we move the INI parse piece to this. And we'll still say it's going to be a shortcut. So we know it's going to be a shortcut. Or do we want to do that? Let's say it's an internet shortcut. Internet shortcut, yeah. And we're going to call it internet shortcut. And we're going to add that other layer that is part of the INI. There we go. Well, that really made it mad. Used as a value here. Is this like too meta for it to handle? Let me just double check my notes on this one too. Pretty much every little piece requires me to check my notes because I don't remember. No, I exactly did that. Oh, maybe. Oh, this is duh, of course. This is such a duh. It was just that. Yeah, there we go. That fixed everything. So simple enough there. So now the internet shortcut here. Oh, but then now I don't have return as a shortcut. I know what I'll do. Let's do this. Let's keep that as the shortcut that it was, because I like the simplicity of that. That's what I want the shortcut to be. But here we know it's an internet shortcut because of this INI parsing we're doing. So let's not even convert it to anything. Let's call it an internet shortcut here. And then we need some kind of conditional to actually make sure that we got an internet shortcut properly. So if, oh wait, let's actually do one step further and just destruct this then. And say internet shortcut. Let's copy it from the thing. I like to do copy paste because I type things wrong all the time. It's got to be some form of some kind of mistakeopathy or just whatever the psychopathy of constantly making little minor mistakes is. Maybe I have that. So there we go. So we extract internet shortcut. We need to say in this case. Now I already know that I think this always returns an object. Yeah, so we don't need to be like that or anything. This is going to return an object, so we can probably say, hey, let's try to destruct it. But this might be empty. Now I think we should allow this to be empty here. Let's just do this. Let's say if internet shortcut, that's when we'll resolve. Otherwise, we don't care. There we go. So that actually worked. Now we didn't even have to do as shortcut. That's weird. I wonder why. It doesn't know it's a shortcut though, so that's the weird thing. Can I define a type here? I don't think so. It'll probably rename it. Yeah, that's like renaming it. I like that anyways. So we don't know what internet shortcut is. I wonder if you can do, I don't think you can do like infer, isn't there like instance of or something? I don't think that's like a TypeScript type of thing. I don't like that. Maybe we should just resolve this regardless of what it is. At least then we've extracted the piece that we needed. I think that's reasonable because why don't we do this? Why don't we say by default it can be an empty object too, and we just straight up resolve it. And we just say, you know, Matt, the types is not complaining again, even though it thinks it's an any. Let's just be clear and say it's a shortcut. So now it's very explicit that we want this to be a shortcut, even if it's empty. I wonder if I could define it then. Let's do that. Let's go hardcore with it. Let's say if it's not internet shortcut, let's just give us an empty shortcut. So I'm going to say you give us URL, which will be empty. And you're going to give us the icon file, which will be empty. Nope. Why did that not work the way I expected it to? It doesn't make sense the way I defined it probably. Does this have to be like that? That doesn't seem right. Or does that seem right? Oh yeah, because we're defining what the default will be. Of course. So silly of me. Okay, so I like that. So one way or another, we're going to get a shortcut now. This is like defining how we want it to be. Oh, and I fixed it, by the way. I didn't even notice, but as you can see, our shortcut is a shortcut now. And it actually looks surprisingly decent for having no styling at all. I'm surprised how well that looks. Hey, now let's do a test. So if I click this, does Hello World open? Click. It opened. It opened. Nice. It positioned a little weird in that it went below the desktop icon when it should be floating over top of it, essentially. But that's like a problem for another day, honestly. Like, we got it. We got it. Look at this. We have our taskbar entry. We can hover over it now. And if we reload the page, the app will go away. And if we click the desktop icon, it opens it. So that's essentially a desktop icon that you click and it opens the app. And it's based on a shortcut from a file that we created. So that's like meta or something, or that's kind of the goal of what I was trying to do with some of this stuff. Anyways, is try to make it a little more simple. I don't know if this is simple or complex, but at least there's a method to my madness. You can see it right here. It's all in code. So we've just made a ton of functions. What's it complaining about here? I haven't said what I'm returning. What am I returning here? JSX element. There we go. Let's do a build command here just to make sure I haven't missed anything else, because I'm not seeing any complaints here. But sometimes when you run build, it finds little things where it's like, hey, why'd you define the type this way? And it can be something that gets caught that ESLint doesn't really catch, unfortunately. There we go. It seems fine. And if I do ESLint, I guess it'll also be fine. So that's cool. Yeah, no problems at all. All right. So cool. So we just made all these pieces. We just made the file manager, I think. Let's look at what we made, because we did a lot. So we got our file entry, which is our styled file entry with its button and its figure and its image, it's very similar to the taskbar entry. And this button we're going to change in the near future, I think. That's going to turn into some kind of like clickable button component, maybe, where it gets an onActivate passed to it and it does some stuff. I don't think I want to do that yet because I need to think more about how I want to refactor it. But having this file manager is a big deal, because now, like I said, if we wanted, we could pop up a window with a file manager component, and we could put different icons from a different folder in there. And then just like that, we have a file explorer. And then for the start menu, we could just make another box. When you click the start button, a box component pops up that has a file manager, and it has a list of items that are come from the start menu folder, you know? So that's the basics. So right there, we have several other main components by having this file manager. So it's kind of a big deal that we're using FS properly now this way. And just to show you that it's doing that too, let's go over here and let's go to localhost. And I want to show you in the network that that's actually what it's doing. Oh man, why is it doing that? Let's clear the cache here. Oh, did I kill the dev environment? I think I did. It says I didn't, but let's rerun it here because I'm getting 404s in the network. So I'm going to rerun dev, refresh this, and it's fixed. Okay. Just the old reboot off and on, you know, works every time. So if we look at the network tab here and I refresh the page, you can see, oh, and I turn off my filtering here. This is the filter. What filtering am I doing here? Oh, I was filtering for some wonky stuff here. Okay, so I refresh one more time. And now if we look through it here, you see it accessed the URL file. It does a head request first, and then it does a get on the file. And it actually got the data of the icon file and then did the parsing. So that's how it worked. And there I got the favicon that it put up there. So you see it was doing its actions as expected nicely. So that was the file entry. What else did we change? We got the file manager, which it's pretty straightforward, the file manager. You got your ordered list, your styled file manager, which may in the future also be a table. It does use files on the directory to get a mapping function, which will turn into map files in some point. I might even try to convert it after I do this commit. We'll see. We'll see how we feel in time. We get the name, we get the path from having the directory and knowing the file using the path commands. We got our useFiles function where we get the directory and we get the callback, and it's very simple using the fs read directory command. Pretty straightforward there. we got the, is this where I just started renaming PIDs? Oh, this is, darn it. Just adding a P there? Oh, okay, I'm getting all my little PID happiness, I'm removing. I'm no longer happy with it. ID's fine, we're talking about process, it's called ID. Maybe I should have called the other one ID too. Where did I use PID again? Maybe I should just not use PID. Here, Here it makes sense, because the files PID, it's like we're no longer in the process context there. So if I say PID there, it's like, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. So I'm going to remove all that little PID stuff I did in the wrong places. Oh, here, what happened? I added some line. Yeah, I don't want to change things unnecessarily. So here in the index, I added the file manager before the taskbar. So it loads the desktop folder. I've made my file entry here that's completely barren of configuration right now. I hesitate to say whether I want to just start dumping in config stuff to show you guys, because it's really early days as far as how I want it to look. So I think I'm just going to not style it right now. Same with the file manager. I need to think more on the styling a little bit for that. Here's where I got PID happy again. Let's not do that. That's just muddying the waters up there. Here's where I get shortcut. I had to change get shortcut a little bit to properly extract the internet shortcut. And I think having an empty one would be fine. How do I use URL? Yeah, I mean, then it would be undefined. No, this is nicer like this, I think. So yeah, so I'm kind of splitting it up. I know it's a shortcut here in the content, so it's okay to do this. And then I export that as a shortcut. Yeah, as a shortcut. That's nice to put it that way. So there we go. That was fixing the internet shortcut. And then this is me being PID happy again. Yeah, let's just undo this, everything I did here, and just leave that the way it was. There we go. So now this is focused on the file manager and the useFiles hook. Created file manager and useFiles hook. Files hook. There we go. And yeah, and added the file manager, and we got the little basic styling. So there we go. So we committed that. And now we've essentially done everything in that list, but I want to get back to that my mapPhiles idea, because I like that it would be just like how with get processes here, we have mapProcesses. With the file manager here, it'd be good if we had a function that could do the same kind of thing. And it'd be called mapPhiles, I guess. It might need to use the useFiles hook though, which would be tricky. It doesn't need to be a useFiles hook anymore. I think that's part of the trick. What did I do for processes here? Oh, it was really simple there in this case. Here it's not, because I don't have processes. I have to pass something in and get back something asynchronously. So how does that change things? I guess maybe it has to be a state function then, and the mapPhiles initially starts as like a process that doesn't really do what you need it to do. Let's try to write this out. mapPhiles, and it could be a use callback, and the callback gets the directory, right, as a string. And what does it do with the directory? Well, it just needs to run that fs command. fs dot, we got to check if it's defined though. Let's do the if fs is defined here. fs dot read directory. And this is what we should go to useFiles here, because it's the same thing. Yeah, this command basically. Let's just copy this. So it'd be like that, but this piece here would be different. Oh, this is like this is that promise now, which is, yeah, that's just different. That's just not going to work in the same way. That's where a hook is good, I guess, in this case. Because I'm trying to think how else you could do it. I can't think how else you could do it currently because of how it's asynchronous. So use callback, it would be waiting for fs. It's dependent on fs in this case. Oops, not a dot, comma. So that doesn't quite make sense because we run directory then. It's not going to return to us what we need. What we need to return, what useFiles returns, is the files map function. But here that's not what's returned. And we can't use a state here. Yeah, that's a tricky one. I guess I see why I didn't quite do it. The goal would be that then we wouldn't have to pass fs in like this, and we already have access to it here. Well, we're not passing it in. We're using it as a hook, I guess. Where am I passing it? Oh, wait, why am I passing it? Callback. Okay, I'm not using fs, I guess. I'm just, because I can use a hook, so at least that's nice. Maybe it's okay the way it is for now. On that note, let's undo the change and let's remove that comment until I think about the refactor a bit more. So where did I add that comment? Here it is. Let's just not have that comment and say, maybe we don't need map files. Or actually, how can I do map files? I'll put, and we'll put that as the next for the next stream. So if we go back to my notes here for this stream and we say next stream, look into map files via file system provider, consumer. Well, that's a perspective thing anyways. So, I think we've done almost everything. We got the hover effect, we got a desktop icon, you click it, it opens the Hello World app. Is it field delayed though? I'm worried about the speed of it there. If I click, that's pretty fast actually. I mean, we're gonna have to do more performance testing and make sure we're not doing any unnecessary rendering and we're doing things as ideal as possible. We'll get to that in the further episodes. I'd like to at some point, like once we're 20 or 30 streams in, we'll have an episode where it's like performance. We'll have an episode where it's like brainstorming, another episode where it's like checking the competition, you know, where we see how other people have done it. Because I do a lot of that piecemeal in all these episodes, but it's because we're still trying to build to the point where we can have some comfortableness with code, where we can just be like, let's make an app, let's do this, let's do that, let's improve things. Whereas right now it's like we're missing a lot of stuff. So we're still getting that stuff in, but this file manager was another huge step. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to think. There's still stuff we're missing, like the start menu, I guess. But at this point, you know, I could make a DOS shortcut icon and I could make an app, a DOS app, and we could have that pop up and do some DOS stuff already. So we're already pretty darn close, but I'd like our window to have a title bar. I'd like our window to be draggable and resizable. I'd like to have a start menu. Those are the things I'd like to do before we get any further along in too many things. So before we commit all this stuff, I want to do an npm run t and make sure I haven't broke the tests. Oops, an npm, just npm t is all you need. And let's see if I broke the one test, because I tend to break it sometimes. Okay, cool, I haven't. And let's see if build still works. And we'll do a push, and maybe we'll see if the deep source code scanner has any complaints with how the code is right now. That'd be interesting to know. So, okay, cool. I think we've done good there. Let's push our 9 commits. And while that's pushing, let's make a couple more stream notes here. Oh, I closed my stream thing here. Let's make a couple more notes for the next stream. I'd like to check the newest deep source issues, if there are any. And what should be our next lofty goal? What's our next big thing? The start menu or some styling, or really getting some styling right? Also a click handler. We need to be able to handle double clicks plus taps plus key buttons. I think the start menu, that's a big one. That's a scary one. Or maybe the windows. Let's do the windows. Let's say Windows title bar. And do we want to get into drag and drop? I think so. Once we have a title bar, we have somewhere we can drag from. So let's say just call it drag and drop. Let's just call it drag and resize windows. That's a big one. So that's like a huge upgrade to the windows. Once we have the windows, then it feels like, oh, we have apps. Right now, when I click Hello World and this little thing pops up, it's like, that's just some text with a gray background. Like, I can't do anything with that, but trust me, that's a window. So, and styling stuff, question mark. there's stuff to style. There's still stuff to style, definitely. And we haven't got into the details. I mean, I guess, yeah, we're going to style stuff. Let's not put that there. But there's still a lot of styling to do in regards to the desktop icons. And once we have I didn't put start menu in here, did I? No. I'm too scared to put the start menu in because that's a lot of work. So we'll get there for sure. But that'll take a whole episode. So then we won't get into any of the Windows stuff. And I think at this point we can get to the Windows stuff because now we got this Hello World window popping up all the time. I want to be able to move it around. I want to be able to drag it and resize it. I want to be able to close and to minimize and to maximize. I don't know if we'll get into all of those functions, but as you can see, that's a lot of stuff to do. The title bar component is going to do minimize, maximize, close, and dragging. Plus the window is going to do resizing. So that alone could take the whole episode, honestly. I think that's it for things to discuss for this episode and for planning for the next stream. It was another quick stream in that my streams aren't 3 hours anymore. They're more like 2 hours and change now, which I think is a little more comfortable for getting stuff done because I actually did a ton of stuff this week and I was able to kind of dump it all out for you in the code. So I think we've gotten a nice little pace here. We're at 2 hours, 20 minutes roughly. And we made a lot of more progress, you know? So thanks again for you guys for tuning in. I hope you liked the stream again. This is episode 10. I hope to do another 100, you know, or however many, but that could take a long time. That could span into 2022 perhaps. So like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more of the same stuff. And thanks again, guys. Really appreciate it. And see you on the next stream. So ciao.